An active search for a Massachusetts mom of 3 who mysteriously vanished after leaving for D.C. She hasn't been seen since New Year's Day.
What happened at that house in Cohasset on New Year's, the morning of New Year's, we don't know.
She was in every way, shape, or form this full of life human being.
Right now it's a missing persons investigation, whether she just needed a little break or a timeout. We're just looking for her.
When a phone has been shut off for a few days, it's concerning.
Hairs were standing on the back of their neck when they first arrived at his house on January 4th.
The husband of the Massachusetts woman missing since New Year's Day, now formally charged with her murder.
He is probably the stupidest murderer who's ever walked the face of the planet Earth.
Anna Walshe, a mom of 3 young boys, goes missing from her Massachusetts home early New Year's Day. She was said to be heading here to Washington, D.C. because of a work emergency. She worked for realty firm Tishman Speyer. Now her husband is charged with her murder, even though her body has never been found. Tonight, we'll take you through Anna's life and what prosecutors say happened in those early morning hours.
She was living the American dream. Right? Immigrated from a war-torn country, came here, got a job, was working to support herself and her family.
Anna Walshe grew up in Serbia before coming to the U.S. in 2005. Reports say she worked her way up in the hospitality industry in New York City, where she met her future husband, Brian Walshe.
She's just so personable. She lights up a room.
After New York, Anna also worked in Washington, D.C., Virginia, and Massachusetts. And while we know details of her professional career, little is known about her relationship with Brian. We spoke with reporter Bob Ward from Boston 25.
That's one of the mysteries here, that their friends that are here in Massachusetts aren't really saying a whole lot to us and about their relationship. I uncovered a report in Washington that showed in 2014 that she complained to police that he threatened to kill her and a friend.
Anna reported to D.C. police that her then boyfriend told her over the phone that he was going to kill her and her friends.
There was a record of him threatening to kill her. And that is a huge red flag.
That report doesn't name Brian Walshe, but states that her boyfriend was living in Massachusetts, where Brian was living at the time. Anna never cooperated with D.C. police, and the case was closed.
A typical follow-up would be have to connect with the victim and get more information. And it appears that she did not want to follow through. Not unusual in domestic violence cases.
More than a year later, Brian and Anna were engaged. Just months after that, they were married. And the year after the couple welcomed their first child, Anna posted to social media a photo of herself with a black eye. In the post, Anna said she had a mild concussion, a bruised hip, and a cut. She appeared to brush it off to friends in the comments, blaming a fall at work. The picture has never been linked back to any sort of domestic violence, and the couple would go on to have 2 more children.
I mean, her kids were her whole world. Whenever she's with them, it's all about them.
Despite living in Cohasset, Massachusetts, Anna began working in D.C. at Tishman Speyer last year.
And I knew they were struggling because she's been far away for so long. I knew she, they had many fights about when are we finally gonna come to D.C.? When am I gonna be with my kids? That was her priority.
It was employees at Tishman Speyer that first reported Anna missing on January 4th.
My friend Jem called me and said, Anna's missing. And the first reaction is what are you talking about? Anna's missing.
Peter says that friend Jem was at Anna and Brian's home New Year's Eve, ringing in the new year, just a short time before investigators would later say she was killed. Initial reports say a family member told police that she left at 4 a.m. on January 1st to catch a flight to D.C. for a work emergency.
It's been reported that she was called to D.C. to handle some type of emergency at one of the properties that she manages. That's why she was attempting to go to D.C. early. She did have a flight booked for the 3rd, but she never got on that flight.
She would not have left on New Year's Day for a work emergency, so I think I pretty immediately knew in my gut that that was not the case. And so it was just sort of this doesn't add up.
According to investigators, Anna's cell phone was turned off on January 2nd.
It's very difficult, as you know, nowadays not to leave an electronic footprint or some type of footprint, which are debit cards or your credit cards, and none of these things have been active since the first of the year.
Anna is the kind of person to respond. Again, given the extent of what she's doing in the day, she might not respond right away, but she does respond. When a phone has been shut off for a few days, it's concerning.
Police say Brian was cooperating in the early days of the investigation into Anna's disappearance.
Whether, she just needed a little break or a timeout, we're just looking for her.
A retired homicide detective who is not involved in the case says he thinks police knew all along.
It's my belief that the police were onto him from the get-go. They made some startling observations of the car before they even knocked on the door.
Brian first told investigators he hadn't seen his wife since New Year's Day, and in that time since, he had only left his home to get ice cream with his son. But as police continued to investigate, they obtained a search warrant for the family home, which led to Brian in handcuffs.
Brian Walshe is sloppy. He's making errors at every turn.
Brian was convicted of federal wire fraud charges in an unrelated case for selling fake Andy Warhol paintings and was awaiting sentencing. As part of his probation, he was wearing an ankle monitor.
His story did not match up with that electronic evidence, his electronic footprint. And at that point, there has to be red flag, I'm sure.
Do you think that may have played into effect when it came to the arrest for him misleading the investigation?
Absolutely.
Brian was charged with misleading police after investigators searched the home. For the first time since Anna's disappearance, the world saw Brian at his arraignment.
The images showed him actually smiling or smirking, and that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And he walked in with an air of arrogance, kind of looking around the courtroom, kind of looking like he owned the place. And I don't know, maybe thinking he could talk his way out of it.
This is a serious situation, and he looked just casual. And I think it's especially someone loving Anna so much, it's really difficult to see that and to understand that altogether. It doesn't make any sense.
With Brian now behind bars, investigators begin to piece together what they say happened to Anna Walshe. Still ahead on this Fox 5 special, the evidence collected by investigators inside that home and the haunting details revealed inside the courtroom.
How could something so horrific happen to such a beautiful human being?
If he did this, it would be smart for him to come clean.
It is a absolutely crushing circumstantial case.
You could hear a pin drop as the prosecutor went from Google search to Google search to Google search to Google search.
Welcome back. Brian Walshe now behind bars for misleading police in the investigation into his wife's disappearance. Anna still has not been found a week after she went missing. During his arraignment for that charge, prosecutors reveal they found blood and a knife in the basement of the couple's home in Cohasset.
Cohasset is a wealthy town on the ocean. It's very well known. Nothing like this happens there.
During that court appearance for the charge of misleading police, we learned that Brian lied about taking his son to get ice cream. Prosecutors say instead, surveillance images show he was buying hundreds of dollars worth of cleaning supplies at Home Depot.
I believe he did clean up, but you can never clean up good enough.
It is almost impossible to clean something well enough that forensic evidence would be actually taken care of.
On the day of his arraignment, police were searching a dumpster in nearby Peabody, near Brian's mother's home.
Investigators recovered 10 trash bags. Inside the trash bags, many of these items contained stains consistent with blood.
Among the things they found were blood-soaked towels and rags, a hacksaw, Anna's COVID card, and a necklace and pair of boots similar to the ones Anna was last seen wearing. A week later, and nearly 2 weeks after Anna's disappearance, Brian was charged with killing her.
So we believe that Brian Walshe dismembered Anna Walshe and discarded her body.
A much different reaction from Brian at this arraignment.
He was very quiet. It was very serious what was being revealed in that courtroom.
As prosecutors laid out their case, evidence shows a slew of disturbing searches made on his son's iPad just hours after Anna was last seen alive.
5 a.m. on January 1st, he searched how long before a body starts to smell. At 4:58 a.m., how to stop a body from decomposing. At 5:20 a.m., he searched how to embalm a body. At 5:47 a.m., 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to. At 6:25 a.m. on the 1st, how long for someone to be missing to inherit. At 6:34 a.m. on the 1st, can you throw away body parts? At 9:29 a.m., what does formaldehyde do? At 9:34 a.m. on the 1st, how long does DNA last? At 9:59 a.m., can identification be made on partial remains? At 11:34 a.m., dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body. At 11:44, how to clean blood from wooden floor. At 11:56 on the 1st, luminol to detect blood. At 1:08, what happens when you put body parts in ammonia? At 1:21 p.m., is it better to throw crime scene clothes away or wash them? Those were on the January 1st.
Prosecutors say Brian didn't stop there. The next day, he's accused of searching things like, is a hacksaw the best tool to dismember a body? And can you identify a body with broken teeth? The day after that, more searches, including what happens to hair on a dead body and what is the rate of decomposition of a body found in a plastic bag compared to on the surface in the woods.
He Googled how to dismember a 115-pound body, and his wife was 115 pounds.
I have never seen a defendant do that many Google searches. Never. It was 3 days worth of not just Google searches, but incriminating and damning Google searches.
She just kept going, and every search was worse than the one before.
Prosecutors also say just days before Anna's disappearance, on December 27th, Brian searched online, what's the best state to divorce for a man?
I've been doing this for almost 40 years, and I've never seen that level of detail unleashed at an arraignment.
Brian Walshe pleaded not guilty.
Defendant will be held without bail pending indictment.
The question remains, where is Anna Walshe?
I think the investigators believe that she was disposed of in the trash and then incinerated, and they were just too late to get to it.
Still ahead in this Fox 5 special, will the circumstantial evidence be enough?
She's such a bright light in the world, and it's not fair what happened. And she does not deserve this.
It's surreal. It really is. It's like, it just, people don't do this to one another, especially a husband to a wife, supposedly.
It's also so sad, young woman, mother of young children. It's gruesome, and it's just a really hideous set of facts.
I think juries are sophisticated enough to know that if someone's sitting up, if someone is being charged with murder, they're also capable of disposing the body.
Welcome back. Brian Walshe now charged with his wife Anna's murder. He pleaded not guilty, and her body still has not been found. Investigators believe he dismembered her and took her and her belongings to different dumpsters starting on January 3rd.
He walks to the dumpster carrying a garbage bag. He's leaning, and it appears to be heavy as he has to heft it into the dumpster. He walks to the dumpster with the garbage bag, and leaves it. On 4:48, he hit another complex in Abington, and at 5:10 p.m., cell phone shows records at another apartment in Brockton.
The next day, on January 4th, police do a welfare check on Anna after coworkers report her missing. During that check is when officers notice Brian's car. Prosecutors say the seats were down inside of his Volvo and there was a plastic liner in the back of the car. Then on January 5th, prosecutors say cell phone data shows him traveling to his mother's home.
The phone traveled to the complex where his mother lives at 9:30 a.m., went for about 5 minutes around the building to the southeast corner. In the southeast corner of that complex is where there was a dumpster. The dumpster was later secured and searched.
While prosecutors were able to secure some of the items Brian allegedly disposed of, it was too late for others.
These bags and what was in them were already picked up and taken to a location for shredding and to be incinerated.
He is probably the stupidest murderer who's ever walked the face of the planet Earth. He has made every textbook mistake possible at every single turn. He is not given any thought to how to actually carry out the perfect murder. If there were a case study in how to commit the worst murder possible, he would be the poster boy for that.
Without a body, is there still the likelihood of this moving forward, a case like this?
I believe so, especially this case, yes. There are challenges, don't get me wrong.
It's a hard case for the prosecution because they don't have a body. And while it's not an impediment to getting a conviction for murder without a body, they still haven't recovered a body in the case, and that presents some challenges for the prosecution.
Duncan Levin is a former federal prosecutor. He says that even though a case without a body can be difficult, the state in this case has what it needs.
Just the overwhelming amount of circumstantial evidence here, the cleaning supplies he bought, it was such a sloppily carried out murder that it's very overwhelming, and that's enough. That's all that the state needs to prove against him.
Most criminal cases are made with circumstantial evidence. And it's not unusual for convictions to be had with solely using circumstantial evidence. So that's not I don't believe that's a hurdle as much as people believe it to be, especially with the abundance of circumstantial evidence in this case.
That overwhelming circumstantial evidence is what Brian's defense team will need to overcome.
The defense is going to seize upon the fact that there's no body. And without that, you can't convict for murder because you don't know that she didn't just run away. The problem for the defense is that there are so many different threads here that all point in the direction of Brian Walshe that it's going to be very difficult for them to individually attack them.
If he did this, it would be smart for him to come clean and somehow, for his kid's sake, fess up to it, right? Because essentially they've lost two parents. No matter what comes from this, they've lost both parents.
Like, she always described him as her best friend, that they were very close, like love at first sight. That was always what she said, that she trusted him, that, anything he may have done wrong in the past, but it was just bad choices. She was a good person. And it's sort of like knowing that now it's jarring, it's gut-wrenching, it's uncomfortable to even think that like someone who's appears so calm and collected could be capable of something you just don't expect.
Lots of times we find abusers to be incredibly charming.
I don't think that she ever thought she was in danger, and if she did, I don't know that she would have reached out to somebody.
So if she were buying a house in DC and thinking about moving the kids, that is a time where domestic violence might escalate because that's the time of separation.
So I think when this opportunity came up as well, she jumped at it as well to be here and to move out of the Boston area. The other part of that really was with Brian's ongoing investigation. I don't know how much I really want to talk about that. With the FBI, was that she was responsible for being the primary breadwinner, and so it was really a matter also of like her taking that on for her family.
Domestic violence cuts across every category you can think of: economic, racial, religious, any group, education level, anything. It cuts across.
If anything good can come from this, is to help the next person or persons who might be in this situation, or to have the ability to get help.
I think if more people start to realize that she, who, as you described, was successful and seemed good on the outside, can also be affected by domestic violence. And so don't look at yourself as, oh, I'm a strong, smart woman, how could this be happening to me? It happens to people across every economic divide.
She was strong, she was confident, she was powerful, and wonderful, and an amazing mother, an amazing mother.
An amazing mother. That's how all of Anna's friends describe her. Still ahead, the message Anna's friends have for her children. Stay with us.
Just as a mom, she's just so attentive and loving, and fun, playful. Like, you know, she has 3 boys, so they play a lot, and they had a lot of fun together. And she was just very present with them.
Anna would want her kids to continue the legacy of her life, right? The legacy of her life has to live on. And whatever that looks like, so she'll want her kids to do that. She'll want her kids to know.
It's not clear who is now caring for Anna and Brian's young children. Initial reports said they were in the custody of Child Services, but there has been some speculation that they could be with Brian's mother. Anna's mother lives in Serbia. Her friends say she visited her mom in December. Anna's mother spoke to Fox Digital, saying Anna texted her just 1 week before she vanished, asking her mom to come to the U.S. the very next day. Her mother was not able to make that quick trip. As for Brian, his case is still making its way through the courts. We'll continue to follow it for you right here on Fox 5. If you or anyone you know is experiencing domestic violence, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jacqueline Matter.